Good morning, good afternoon, maybe good evening for everyone. It is my great pleasure to share with our recent work. So my title will be the Artificial Intelligence Meeting Traditional Chinese Medicine, a bridge to a magic box of TCM pulse pattern recognition. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm a TCM practitioner with over 30 experience. In the meantime, I'm a scientist as well. So I want to bridge Chinese medicine with modern science to see the modern science can open the magic box to see how TCM doctors recognize the disease and make diagnosis. So as you all know, Western medicine is the mainstream medical system nowadays in the world, which have been built up based on the experiments to get the new knowledge. For example, find a new drug target, then we screen drugs, for example, for COVID-19, for SARS-CoV-2, we found a S protein, then we need to find some drugs to be effective. Then we develop those drugs as the drug candidate to conduct systematic studies. Eventually, a new drug be developed. This kind of approach called as from bench to bedside. So other than Western medicine, Chinese medicine, actually traditional Chinese medicine have been developed for centuries based on direct experience. We call it as direct clinical trials, but it is not placebo-controlled random, but it's large sample size, open field, okay? So there's a famous sentence in ancient textbook called Senor tested hundreds of herbs, 30% are toxic stuff. And with this approach called as L and trials, then knowledge be accumulated and then test for 2,000 years. Eventually, we accumulate the knowledge with a huge amount of herbs and formulas, as well as acupunctures, then form a Chinese medicine. So actually, with long history, Chinese medicine have service and play crucial roles in health promotion and disease treatment in China over 2,000 years. From the very early beginning, this is the textbook called as Yellow Imperial Inner Canon, which this book was written in 2,000 years ago. To introduce the basic principle of Chinese medicine. And here this book called as Shennen's Pharmacopoeia, and this is including 365 herbal items, which catalog into 3 catalogs, different type of functions. And for long history, there's huge amount of knowledge has been accumulated and tested from generation to generation until now. So we have a systematic medical systems, as well as a huge amount of herbals, herbal formulas, as active compounds, functions, and so on. So then we provide a huge amount of for drugs discovery when there's a close talk between West and the East. So according to the Chinese medicine approaches, TCM practitioners generally use the traditional way to collect the disease information called as a full diagnosis method, which including within inspection, auscultation, olfaction, inquiring, and palpation. By integrating those information together, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners be able to integrate those information together make a diagnosis regarding to the disease position, pathogenic factors, and disease conditions, syndrome patterns, and so on. Then based on those information, we can make a clear diagnosis and then make the therapeutic approaches to deal with this clinical situation. During this process, the most difficult part is the palpation, means the TCM pulse recognition, because different TCM doctors may have different interpretations to the same pulse pattern if there are different experience. Whether we can build up a standardized approach, it is really challenging. So it is hard to transfer the knowledge from the experienced TCM practitioners to junior practitioners. So there's a famous sentence written in Maijing, the Pulse Classic, which was over 1,700 years ago. The famous sentence states that the principle of pulse diagnosis is easy to be understood. However, pulse patterns are extremely difficult to be distinguished through the finger sensation, although you know the principle, but you may not be able to clearly to figure out the pattern of the pulse. So in that case, word intelligence could provide opportunity to open such a microscope, bring the knowledge be easy, masked, and transfer to the next generation. So we tried this to see whether we could make progress. So AI is one of useful. So we tried this. So let me simply introduce the landmarks of TCM development, AI development, and its application in medical practice. Actually, at first, the neural network concept was introduced in 1951, and the first AI program was introduced in 1955. The first machine learning concept was introduced in 1959. At first, the AI program for English learning, okay, which is the first communication between human and machine, in 1965. So a medicine expert system for diagnosis and the treatment of infectious disease was introduced in 1972. A fusing logical model for computer-assisted medical diagnosis was introduced in 1980. So then after that, a huge amount of work has been done and tried from different angles to use AI technology for medical practice. For example, a Bayesian network model was introduced for the diagnosis of psychiatric disease in 2009, and the wireless heart health monitoring service platform has been introduced recently. So with those advanced technology developed, so the AI and the machine learning become a common used method for medical practice. So suddenly, people all try to use these approaches in the TCM diagnosis as well. For example, Zhao improves the neural network model to monitor blood pressure propagation from the wrist to the fingertips. This is, although it is not a TCM method, but it brings a concept potentially used for the pulse diagnosis. So a fusion neural network was introduced to classify pulse imaging based on TCM expressed in in the pulse diagnosis in 2007. So a 4-layer AN model was introduced for pulse study with over 200 subjects and bring some of a new concept. However, it seems to me that the AN pulse diagnostic model has satisfied in accuracy, specificity, and sensitivities. So we are trying to fine-tune this system, whether we could step forward to understand the TCM pulse diagnosis. So that's the major challenge and bottlenecks for AI technology in the application of TCM pulse diagnosis. Firstly, the pulse diagnosis should be consistent by the TCM doctors. Unfortunately, the correlation and the consistencies between the subject finger sensation of TCM practitioners and the machine's recording the pulse parameters, those inconsistent might bring the gap of the knowledge. Okay, and also because the most of the machine are not developed for the real-time recording the singulars and the information, so the mismatch of time, pressure, position in between the TCM practitioners for the pulse feeling and also machine data correction may introduce artifacts and to the recognition of the pulse parameters and characteristics. The most AI network systems are based on the technology from the wearable health device without the restrictive following TCM principles, then leading to the TCM practitioners don't accept that they and also the recognition from the TCM. So in that case, we need to find a resolution to resolve those potential problems. So now we think about those strategies, resolution. So firstly, we consider to develop a personalized TCM pulse diagnostic expert system, since the different experts may have a different interpretation to the same pulse condition. So in that case, at first, we should build up a large scale database based on the single TCM practitioners. If they can get the consistent interpretation to the pulse condition physically. So in that case, with a large scale of the database, we may be able to calibrate the errors and remove some of the artificials. In that case, we can get a relative consistent information. Then deal with the differences and the inconsistencies of different individuals. So in that case, we need to have a group meeting to discuss, to figure out the reason why people have different recognition to the same pulse pattern recording by machine. So there's an important point. We need to enhance the cross-talking between TCM practitioners and the machine AI machines. In that case, we could standardize and the digitalization of the TCM pulse diagnosis. And most important is we need to develop a real-time AI data collection systems and to under the real world condition to recording the pulse pressure, temperature, frequency, the pressures, and so on. All those information together simultaneously recognized by TCM practitioners as well as by the machine. So that maybe we could bridge the machine and the human recognition. In that case, we conducted several phases of study. The study already lasted for many years. The phase, we developed a pulse sense platform. Is the proper palpation robotic hands and the AI system for pulse diagnosis. Here, this is the model we build. So you can see this is the hardware. So the hardware including 3 robotic fingers, which mimic the biological status, including the surface, the temperature, and all the senses. And with those systems to collect the data, and then with the computer system to deal with the data for the pulse recognition. And then we develop a robotic hand with 3 biological mimic fingers. Okay, we use the laser to pick the exact and mark the positions. When the TCM doctor to feel the, we mark this position, then we use the machine, the laser to point out the exact position, and then to guiding the fingers to touch it at the same surface of the TCM practitioners. And then we design a biological mimic sensor fingers. Okay. Here is structures. Because of interest of time, I'm not going to the detail for the design. And we compare the different sensors actually available. So eventually we pick up those PPS Digitech sensor, because with the very good sensitivity and the quality. Certainly the price is very expensive. Fortunately, we get a big funding to support this study. So we implant the AN system to sense the parameters, including the frequency, the intensity, depth, reach, regularity, and so on. Many parameters all put into the consideration for the machine learning. So actually, according to classic TCM textbook, there's 28 pulse patterns. Certainly, in clinical, there's mixed pattern, even make it be very complex. So, but the elements, including location, frequency, force, rhythm, and the tensions, and so on. So then we can catalog into different patterns of the powers. So based on this, we use ANN to integrate the information together for the recognition of the data. So here you can see how it works with this. So with the laser point, you can see the powers, the fingers touch the position, then we record. You can see the singling here. So with the collection of this data, so then we could get the information with 2D, 3D, and also the pulse parameters. So you can see the information we received. So we can see the 3 positions we call the 正观尺, and also with 3 the dips, I mean in the surface, in the middle level, and in the deep level. So we can got different type of the powers, and then with this machine, and I think it works well, then we conduct the pilot study. So we have the hypothesis that AI-based pulse sensor platform plus the robotic hands could recognize the pulse pattern, okay, diagnosed by experienced TCM practitioners. So we performed the 2 phases of study with with a 1 year time gap because we want to test whether TCM doctor can make the similar diagnosis with 1 year gap if there's the physical pulse pattern parameters are similar, whether the TCM doctor be able to make the consistent director. So who will receive the test? Myself. So certainly we also invited 2 junior TCM practitioners to further we can make it consistent. This is the pre-required for machine learning. So in that case, UCC system, we performed the pilot study with 12 people, 6 male and 6 female. So unfortunately, one subject will have some cardiovascular disease. We removed this data because we want to get the normal data at the first. So Professor Lee is an electronic engineer. He's a professor in City University. Here is my feeling that the powers process. And also I have 2 students, young students, attended this test. So go through this after the field pulse, then the machine to collect the data. So in that case, after this, we initially did some of the data process to remove some of the interference. For example, the hand movement, respiration, singular shifting, and so on. Then we extract the pulse pattern. So there are 6 patterns, although 11 health subjects. So in that case, but those elements, some of the elements are similar, but some have a slightly different. TCM doctors can fill in the different patterns. Here is the parameters about the pressure, blood, heart rate, BMI, and also the patterns recognized by TCM doctor. This is my recognition to this different type of the pulse pattern. And then we did a higher dimension analysis for individual pulse pattern. This is the number 11, the pulse pattern like this. But for the number 4, you can see that the huge difference. Here you can see that. Then we extract the information with a high dimensional analysis, and then we get some of the initial idea. So among the different patterns, we can prove the collectionist of judgment by TCM doctors, and then we choose one sample of subject from each type to perform FFT. Then to show the differences of major peaks from the 6 types of diagnosis. Among the different, among the same pulse pattern, we found the slight diversity in frequency domain, but with the same amount of, same number of peaks. However, there's a difference in the pressure amplitude. So in that case, we could analyze these patterns. Then we found the 6 type of the pattern here under the frequency. So there's just the slightly difference. Although the differences are slight, but the TCM doctor, by intensively feeling that we can get the consistent direct recognition to the pulse. And then we did the AI analysis, the results. And for those different type of the pulse pattern, and then to do the data process, we surprisingly we get a very consistent diagnosis for these 6 type of pattern pulse patterns with AN system. So the machine learning results yield the accuracy up to 97.5% correction. So this is extremely stimulating and surprise and build up my confidence for the pulse diagnosis. So then we step forward on this direction. And so in summary, the TCM practitioners called distributed small changes between different pulse patents. And our system can classify at least 6 compounds patents with the high consistency. So then we move to the next phase to develop a new fabrication process with flexible pulse sensor array that called conform to human skin around the risk area. So in that case, we could make the simultaneous data collection for the TCM doctor as well as machine learning. So because of interest of time, I'm not going into the details of the design. Also, we are applying the patents for those technology. So we build those systems like, and you can see that with very thin membrane contain the sensor. We design those sensors, and then to build up the power data acquisition systems. Just simply put on the skin, so we can simultaneously filling the powers, also transfer data for the machine learning. So in that case, we could simultaneously analyze and to reduce the artifacts. So here is the 3D printer pulse sensor process. So we use the phantom system to test the accuracy, the system. Then we did some pilot study on human subjects. So the machine is ready for us to move forward. Then we apply a grant to step forward. So we are now in the phase 3 stage to conduct the clinical trial for AI recognition for TCM patent pulse patent in healthy volunteers and cardiovascular disease with the involvement of electronic engineers, doctors, and cardiologists working together. The first phase of study, we target over 200 subjects to see whether we could get the consistent recognition for the TCM doctors and also for the machine learning. And then we analyze the data to build up database and also to fine tune the machine. So for this, we're still ongoing. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, this is our proposal. So we will first choose the common pulse type. Certainly, if there's more, I mean, if more different patents, we could increase the sample size as well. So we will conduct the study with 3 years to see whether we will be able to get the consistent results and get the new data. So if we can get some exciting data, I will share with you later. Okay, so I would like to get the conclusion and the perspectives. So the development of AI technology do provide a new opportunity for us to promote the subjective recognition and the modernization of TCM pulse diagnosis. And the application of AI technology may provide opportunity to develop telemedicine for TCM practice in future. So that's all I want to share with you, and I want to recognize the following contributors. And that study is the collaboration between Hong Kong U and CTU. And in my team, Ms. Alice Liang, Ms. Binghe Guang, and Ms. Xiaotong Chen attended these studies. And in the City University and Professor Li Wenjun and also Hoi and Ko Wang attended the machine design. So this study received the grant support by HMRF. That's all I want to share with you. Thank you for your attention.